The first thing she felt was the ground, hard, unforgiving. The Montana sky was a brilliant, cruel blue as Jessica Valmont's body hit the dusty trail with a thud that stole the air from her lungs. Her wedding dress, a symbol of a future that had just evaporated, was already caked in dirt. It was torn at the hem, a casualty of being thrown from a moving stagecoach. The rumble of the wheels faded into the distance, and mixed with it the sound of ugly, mocking laughter. The man who had arranged her marriage, her supposed savior, had played her for a fool. A cruel joke that ended right here, in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but wilderness stretching to the horizon. She pushed herself to her knees, a sharp pain stabbing her side. Her honey blonde hair, once perfectly pinned, tumbled around her face in a tangled mess. There were no towns, no homes, just endless prairie and the far-off teeth of the mountains. "Help," she whispered, her voice a dry rasp. The effort sent her into a fit of coughing. She was so thirsty, so utterly alone. Then she heard it. Hoofbeats, steady, coming closer. Jessica froze, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. In 1875, a stranger in this territory could be your salvation, or he could be your end. The rider's silhouette grew larger against the dawn. He slowed his horse, and she could finally see him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a face weathered by the sun and eyes the color of a winter sky. He looked at her, then at the tattered wedding dress, and his expression was unreadable. "Ma'am," he called, his voice deep and rough. He swung down from the saddle in one smooth motion. "Are you hurt?" Jessica tried to stand, but her ankle gave way, and she stumbled. The man was at her side in an instant, his hands strong as they steadied her. I was on the stagecoach," she managed to say, her voice cracking. "They threw me out. They said the marriage was a joke." The stranger's blue eyes hardened into chips of ice. He took in the ripped dress, the small traveling case tossed in the dirt beside her, the bruises already blooming on her arms. He didn't say another word. He just scooped her up into his arms as if she weighed nothing at all. "I'll carry you now," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Name's Liam Morgan. My ranch is about 3 miles east of here." "Jessica Valmont," she breathed, too exhausted and shocked to protest. "I was supposed to marry a man in Helena, a man named Harold Webster." Liam's jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jump. "Webster," he repeated, and the name sounded like a curse on his tongue. "The mining man." Jessica nodded weakly against his chest. "He has a reputation," Liam said, his voice grim. "And it's not a good one." He set her gently on his horse, then mounted behind her, his arms a solid wall around her. She leaned back against him, the warmth of his body a strange comfort in the cold morning air. This man was a complete stranger, yet she felt a flicker of safety she hadn't felt in years. "My ranch isn't much," he said as they rode. "But you'll be safe there. We'll figure this out." Jessica closed her eyes, a single tear slipping down her cheek. "Thank you," she whispered. Liam's arms tightened just a fraction. "Sometimes," he said, his voice low and strange, "fate has a funny way of putting people right where they need to be." But as they rode towards the horizon, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that this was no coincidence. The way he'd said Webster's name, it wasn't just disapproval, it was hatred. Pure, simple hatred. And she was right in the middle of it. The Morgan Ranch appeared over a rise, a modest but sturdy homestead tucked against a stand of cottonwoods, a 2-story cabin, a large barn, and several corrals where horses grazed peacefully. Smoke curled from the chimney, a welcoming sign against the vast, empty landscape. As they got closer, the cabin door swung open and an older woman with silver-streaked hair bustled out, wiping her hands on an apron. "Liam Morgan, I was starting to think a bear got you," she called out, her voice sharp but not unkind. Then she saw Jessica, and her scolding tone vanished. "Lord Almighty, Liam, what in heaven's name happened here?" "Maggie," Liam called back, his voice tight. "Found her on the trail, thrown from the northbound stage." He dismounted and gently lifted Jessica down. Maggie rushed forward, her eyes wide with shock. "In a wedding dress, no less. Bring her inside, boy, quickly now." The cabin was warm and smelled of coffee and wood smoke. Liam set Jessica down in a cushioned chair by the large stone fireplace. "This is Maggie," he said. "She's mostly been in charge of me since I was a boy. Don't let her fool you. Her bark is worse than her bite." Maggie snorted, bustling around the kitchen. "That boy's been full of tall tales his whole life," she said to Jessica, but a fond smile touched her lips. "Let's get you some tea, dear. You look half-starved." As Maggie pressed a warm mug into Jessica's hands, Liam took off his hat and hung it on a peg. His dark hair was damp with sweat. He turned to face her, his blue eyes intense. "Now," he said, his voice low, "if you're up to it, tell us everything. Every last detail about Harold Webster." Jessica took a shaky breath, the warmth of the mug seeping into her cold fingers. "I'm an orphan," she began. "Raised at a school in St. Louis. When I came of age, the headmistress told me a successful Montana businessman, Mr. Webster, had arranged to marry me. A mail-order bride." Liam's expression grew darker with every word. "He sent money for the trip," she continued. "A letter saying he couldn't wait to meet me. The stage was supposed to take me to Helena, but last night a man got on, said he was a friend of Harold's. This morning, he and the driver, they just started laughing. They said Harold would never marry some penniless orphan, that it was all a game to teach one of his rivals a lesson." Maggie gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Those monsters." "They took my trunk," Jessica said, her voice hollow. "Threw me out with just this small case. They said I should be grateful they didn't do worse." Liam began to pace the floor, his fists clenched at his sides. "Webster uses people like pawns in his games. But this is a new low, even for him." Maggie put a gentle hand on Jessica's shoulder. "What will you do now, dear?" The reality of her situation hit Jessica like a physical blow. "I don't know," she whispered, staring into her tea. "I have no money, no family, nowhere to go." "You'll stay here," Liam said. It wasn't a question, it was a command. His voice was so firm, so absolute, it startled her. "I couldn't impose," she started. "It's no imposition," he cut her off. He stopped pacing and looked right at her, his blue eyes boring into hers. "We've got the room." Maggie nodded vigorously. "That we do, and I could use the help. This big oaf is no good with anything but cows and horses." Jessica looked from Liam's intense face to Maggie's kind one, feeling a wave of gratitude so strong it almost made her dizzy. But something was off. When she'd told her story, Liam and Maggie had exchanged a look. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but it was there. A look of shared history. A look that said this wasn't just a random act of cruelty they were hearing about. It was something more. It was a piece of a puzzle they were already trying to solve. And somehow she was the newest piece. "Just rest now," Liam said, his voice a little softer. "You're safe here." As Jessica let Maggie lead her to a small, clean bedroom, she knew he was right. She was safe for now. But she also knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that she had not been found by accident. Liam Morgan hadn't just stumbled upon a damsel in distress. He'd been looking for something out on that trail at dawn, and he had found her. The next morning, Jessica woke to sunlight and the smell of frying bacon. She was in a simple but comfortable room, wearing a borrowed nightgown. For a moment, she felt a disorienting sense of peace, before the memory of the past 48 hours came rushing back. Maggie brought her breakfast on a tray, along with a plain but sturdy blue dress. "Belonged to Liam's sister, Sarah," she explained, before she moved east. "Is Mr. Morgan around?" Jessica asked. "He's out with the herd," Maggie said, a little too quickly. "Always work to be done on a ranch." Jessica wanted to earn her keep. She spent the morning helping Maggie in the kitchen and the afternoon weeding the vegetable garden. The simple physical work was a balm to her frayed nerves. She was scrubbing dirt from her hands at the outdoor pump when Liam rode in. He didn't go to the barn. He rode straight to her. "Miss Valmont," he said, swinging down from his horse. "You're looking better." "I feel better," she said, offering a small smile. "And please, call me Jessica." "Jessica," he repeated, and the way he said her name sent a strange shiver down her spine. "Then you have to call me Liam." As they walked towards the house, she asked, "Do you manage this whole ranch by yourself?" He nodded. "My father passed 5 years back. It's just been me and Maggie since. I hire hands for the big roundups, but the rest of the time, it's just us." Jessica looked around at the well-kept fences, the healthy livestock. "It's impressive." A faint blush touched his tanned cheeks. "It's home." Just then she saw a plume of dust in the distance. A rider coming fast from the east. Liam saw it too, and his whole body went rigid. A hand drifted instinctively towards the pistol on his hip. "That's Frank Tolliver," he said, his voice flat and hard. "He's the foreman for the Circle W." "Circle W?" Jessica asked. "Webster's Ranch," Liam said, his eyes narrowing. "Biggest spread in the county. Webster stays in Helena playing the big shot with his mines, but Tolliver does his dirty work." A cold knot of fear tightened in Jessica's stomach. "Do you think they know I'm here?" "We're about to find out," Liam said, moving to stand just slightly in front of her. Tolliver reined in his horse, kicking up a cloud of dust. He was a wiry man with a mean, pinched face and eyes as cold as a snake's. He tipped his hat in a way that was more of an insult than a greeting. "Morgan," he sneered, his gaze sliding past Liam to fix on Jessica. "And you must be the runaway bride." "What do you want, Tolliver?" Liam's voice was a low growl. "Just delivering a message," Tolliver said, a slick smile on his face. "Mr. Webster sends his deepest apologies. Seems there was a misunderstanding. His instructions were misinterpreted by some over-eager employees." "Misunderstanding?" Jessica's voice shook with rage. "I was thrown from a moving coach." Tolliver just shrugged, as if she were talking about bad weather. "Mr. Webster is a forgiving man. He's prepared to overlook your little adventure. He's still interested in the marriage. He sent me to escort you to Helena." Liam stiffened beside her. "She's not going anywhere with you." "That's for the lady to decide, ain't it?" Tolliver's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. His hand was resting near his own gun. "Mr. Webster is a powerful man, Miss Valmont. He can give you a life of luxury. Fine dresses, parties, not like this dirt farm." Jessica stepped forward, her fear burning away into pure anger. "You can tell Mr. Webster that his proposal and his apology can go straight to hell." Tolliver's smile finally dropped. His eyes narrowed. "I'd think twice if I were you, little lady. Webster owns half this territory. He even owns the bank that holds the mortgage on Morgan's ranch." Liam's jaw tightened, but he didn't say a word. He just stood there, a stone wall of silent fury. "I've made my decision," Jessica said, her voice clear and strong. "Please leave." Tolliver stared at her for a long, hard moment. Then he let out a short, ugly laugh. "As you wish. But Harold Webster isn't a man who likes to be told no. He always gets what he wants. Always." He wheeled his horse around and galloped away, leaving them in a cloud of dust and unspoken threats. Jessica turned to Liam, her heart pounding. "Is it true? About the mortgage?" Liam let out a long breath, running a hand through his hair. "Webster's been trying to buy me out for years, wants my land for the river access. When I refused to sell, he bought my loan from the bank in Billings. It was his way of putting a leash around my neck." "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I've brought this trouble to you." He turned to look at her, and the hardness in his eyes softened. "You didn't bring the trouble, Jessica. It was already here. Webster just gave it a new name." But as they stood there in the quiet yard, Jessica noticed something. Liam wasn't just angry. He was resigned. As if this was an outcome he'd been expecting. As if her arrival hadn't started this war, but had merely triggered the next battle in a long, secret campaign. He was playing a deeper game, and she had no idea what the rules were. The next few weeks fell into a strange routine. Jessica worked alongside Maggie, cooking, cleaning, tending the garden. She learned to mend fences and handle the horses, discovering a quiet competence she never knew she possessed. She found a fragile peace in the rhythm of the ranch, in the wide open sky and the steady, hard work. Liam was a constant, solid presence. He was quiet, but she would often catch him watching her, a complicated emotion in his blue eyes that she couldn't quite decipher. One evening, they sat on the porch together, watching the sun bleed across the mountains. The silence between them was comfortable, but filled with unspoken things. "Why did you agree to it?" Liam asked suddenly, his voice low. "Marrying a man you'd never met." Jessica looked out at the purple shadows creeping across the prairie. "When you grow up with nothing, security is a powerful lure," she said softly. "The orphanage. It wasn't a kind place. Girls were expected to become governesses or marry as soon as they could. Webster's offer felt like a lifeline, a home of my own, respectability." "You deserve more than that," Liam said, his voice rough. She gave him a sad smile. "I'm learning that. I'm learning that a cage, even a gilded one, is still a cage." He wanted to say more. She could see it in his eyes. He wanted to tell her she could have a home here, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, the moment was shattered by the sound of hoofbeats. Not one rider this time. Several. Liam was on his feet in an instant, his body tense. "Stay here," he ordered, ducking inside to grab his rifle. 3 men rode into the yard. Tolliver was in the lead, a smug smirk on his face. "Evening, Morgan," he called out. "Just checking on the neighbors." Liam stepped back onto the porch, the rifle held loosely in his hands, but ready. "My land isn't a public road, Tolliver." "No," Tolliver said, his eyes glinting. "But that creek of yours is a fine spot to water a herd. We're moving 500 head north tomorrow, just scouting the path." "The crossing is 5 miles north, and you know it," Liam said, his voice dangerously even. "This is harassment." Tolliver shrugged, feigning innocence. "Call it what you want. I also have another message from Mr. Webster. He's calling in your loan. Payment in full is due in 30 days, or he forecloses." Jessica gasped. She had moved to the doorway and heard everything. "That's not legal," Liam snarled. "I have 6 more months." "The terms have changed," Tolliver said with a malicious grin. "It's all in the fine print, Morgan. Webster can call the note due with 30 days' notice. Consider this your notice." His venomous gaze shifted to Jessica. "The offer still stands, Miss Valmont. A word from you could make all this unpleasantness go away. Might be wise to consider it, since your new home is about to be sold out from under you." Anger, hot and fierce, surged through Jessica. She stepped out onto the porch, standing beside Liam. "You can tell Mr. Webster," she said, her voice ringing with defiance. that I would rather live on this porch with nothing but the clothes on my back than spend 1 minute as his wife. Tolliver's face darkened into a furious scowl. Suit yourself, lady, but don't come crying to us when you're both out on the trail with nothing. 30 days, Morgan. They wheeled their horses and rode off, their laughter hanging in the air like poison. The silence they left behind was heavy, suffocating. Can he do that? Jessica asked, her voice trembling slightly. Liam stared out into the twilight, his face a mask of grim determination. If he holds the paper, yes, he can. The contracts are written to favor men like him. How much is it? $2,000, he said, the number sounding like a death sentence. I don't have it. I won't have it until I sell the herd after the summer drive. Jessica's mind raced. Can't you sell some now, or get another loan? He shook his head. No bank in this territory will cross Harold Webster. And selling the cattle now, before they're fattened, I'd lose everything anyway. He forced a tight, reassuring smile that didn't reach his eyes. Don't you worry, I'll figure something out. But later that night, as Jessica lay in bed listening to the lonely cry of a coyote, she knew he was lying. There was no way out. Liam had saved her, had given her a home and his protection, and now, because of her, he was going to lose it all. Webster's cruelty wasn't just about business, it was personal, it was a vendetta, and she was the weapon he was using to destroy Liam Morgan. She had to do something. But what could a penniless orphan do against the most powerful man in Montana? The answer came to her in the dark, quiet hours before dawn. It was a wild, desperate gamble. It could get them both killed. But it was the only card she had left to play, and she was going to play it. When Liam came down for breakfast, Jessica was already dressed in the blue dress, a borrowed shawl wrapped around her shoulders. She looked ready for a journey. "Where are you going?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "I need to go to town," she said, her voice calm and steady. "To Riverdale. I can take you in a few days. We need supplies anyway." "No," she said gently but firmly. "I need to go today, and I have to go alone." His eyes narrowed with suspicion. "This isn't about Tolliver's threat, is it? If you're thinking about going to Webster—" "It's nothing like that," she assured him quickly. "I would never. This is something else, something I have to do myself. Please, Liam, you have to trust me." He studied her face, searching for the truth in her eyes. The silence stretched between them, thick with tension. Finally, he gave a slow, reluctant nod. "Take Penny," he said, naming his gentlest mare. "She's sure-footed. The town is a 2-hour ride southwest. Just follow the main trail." "Thank you," she said, relief washing over her. "I'll be back before dark, I promise." The ride to Riverdale gave her time to think, to steel her nerves. The town was little more than a single dusty street lined with wooden storefronts. She tied Penny outside the general store and walked in, her heart pounding a steady rhythm against her ribs. The proprietor looked at her with friendly curiosity. "Can I help you, miss?" "Yes," she said, keeping her voice even. "Could you direct me to the telegraph office and the office of the local newspaper?" The man's eyebrows shot up. "Telegraph's right next door. The Riverdale Register is at the far end of the street, the one with the red door. Say, you're the woman staying out at the Morgan place, aren't you?" News traveled fast. "Yes," she said. "Mr. Morgan has been very kind." "He's a good man," the proprietor said with a nod. "Salt of the earth, just like his father was." At the telegraph office, Jessica spent almost every last cent she had saved from her teaching days, sending a flurry of carefully worded messages to St. Louis. They were cryptic, coded, but she prayed the recipient would understand the urgency. Then, she walked down the dusty street to the little building with the red door. The Riverdale Register smelled of ink and old paper. A young man looked up from a printing press, his fingers stained black. "I need to speak to the editor," Jessica said. "I have a story for him." The editor, Mr. Finch, was an old man with a shock of white hair and eyes as sharp as a hawk's. He listened intently as Jessica told him everything. Not just her story of being thrown from the stagecoach, but the things she'd overheard at the orphanage over the years. Whispers from other girls, fragments of letters, names of other men who had been ruined by a businessman from Montana. She laid out a pattern of cruelty and corruption that went back years. When she was finished, Mr. Finch leaned back in his chair, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. "Miss Valmont," he said, his voice a low whistle. "I've been hearing rumors about Harold Webster for a decade, but I've never had anything I could print, never had a witness willing to put their name to it." "I am," Jessica said firmly. "And I believe, once the story is out, others will come forward too." "I believe you're right," Finch said, his eyes gleaming. "When do you want this to run?" "As soon as possible," she said. "In the very next edition." "For a story like this, Miss Valmont," the editor said, leaning forward, "I'll stop the presses." Jessica rode back to the ranch as the sun set, a strange mixture of terror and triumph churning inside her. She had just declared war. Liam was waiting on the porch, his silhouette dark against the fading light. "Everything all right?" he asked, his voice laced with worry. "Yes," she said, letting him help her down from the saddle. "At least I hope it will be. You want to tell me what this was all about?" She hesitated. "Not yet. I need to wait and see if my plan works. But I will. Soon." He looked at her, his blue eyes searching her face in the twilight. She expected him to push, to demand answers. Instead, he just nodded. "All right," he said softly. "I trust you." Those 3 words hit her with more force than a physical blow. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever simply trusted her. In that moment, standing in the quiet of the evening with the vast Montana sky above them, she realized her desperate gamble wasn't just for him. It was for her, too. It was for the chance at a life where someone looked at her and said, "I trust you." 3 days later, the storm broke. Liam rode back from town with supplies, his face like a thundercloud. He slammed the latest edition of the Riverdale Register down on the kitchen table. "Did you do this?" he demanded. His voice wasn't angry. It was something else. Awe, disbelief. The headline was huge, bold, and damning. "Prominent businessman's web of deceit exposed," and beneath it, a subheading. "Harold Webster's cruel schemes include mail-order bride scam, predatory loans, and land grabs." Jessica took a deep breath. "I might have spoken to the editor." "Spoken to him?" Liam stared at her, then down at the paper, then back at her. "Jessica, this is dynamite. Webster will be furious. He'll come after you." "Read the whole article," she urged. He sat down and began to read. The story detailed not just her ordeal, but connected it to 2 other women from the same orphanage who had been lured west with false promises, only to be abandoned or worse. It detailed Webster's practice of buying up loans to force ranchers off their land. And, most powerfully, it included anonymous but detailed quotes from former business associates, hinting at fraudulent mining claims and tax evasion. It painted a picture of a man who was not just a bully, but a criminal. "How?" Liam asked, looking up, his eyes wide with amazement. "How did you get all of this?" "The headmistress at the school keeps meticulous records," Jessica explained. "When I sent her a telegraph asking about other girls sent to Webster and hinted at a public scandal, she became very cooperative. As for the rest, Mr. Finch had been collecting those stories for years. My testimony was just the spark he needed to light the fire." Liam just shook his head, a slow, stunned smile spreading across his face. "But it might not be enough," he said, his expression turning serious again. "This will just make him more determined to ruin me." "That's why I did more than just go to the newspaper," she said, her voice filled with a new, steely confidence. "I also sent a telegraph to the Territorial Banking Commissioner in Helena, detailing Webster's lending practices. And I sent one to a law firm there that specializes in land disputes." Liam was speechless. He just stared at her. "The lawyer believes we have a strong case to challenge Webster's right to call in your loan," she continued, her words coming faster now. "Especially given the public outcry this article is sure to cause. It will buy us time. Time for an official investigation to begin." "Jessica Valmont," Liam said finally, his voice thick with emotion. He reached across the table and took her hand. "You are without a doubt the most remarkable, terrifying woman I have ever met." A blush rose to her cheeks. "I couldn't let him win. Not after you." Her voice trailed off. "It's more than that," he said softly, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. His blue eyes held hers. "This isn't just about the ranch anymore, is it?" She couldn't speak. She could only shake her head, her heart hammering in her chest. "When I found you on that road," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper, "I felt like I'd been waiting for you my whole life, and I didn't even know it." Before she could answer, the sound of hoofbeats echoed from outside. Many hoofbeats, coming fast. Liam was on his feet in a second, moving to the window. His face went grim. "It's Tolliver," he said, "and he's brought a whole army with him." The war had just arrived on their doorstep. Liam grabbed his rifle. "Maggie, get to the back room. Jessica, stay inside." "No," Jessica said, her voice shaking but firm. "I started this. I will not hide." He looked at her, and for a second she thought he would argue. Instead, he gave a sharp nod. "Then stay behind me." They stepped onto the porch together, just as Tolliver and at least 10 riders swarmed into the yard, surrounding the cabin. Tolliver's face was twisted into a mask of pure rage. He held up a crumpled copy of the newspaper. "You're going to pay for this, Morgan," he screamed. "Both of you." "This is private property, Tolliver," Liam said, his voice calm and cold as a river stone. His rifle was held ready. "You and your men need to leave." "Not without the woman," Tolliver snarled, his eyes locking on Jessica. "Mr. Webster wants to see her. He sent us to bring her to Helena, whether she wants to go or not." "That's called kidnapping," Liam said flatly. "And it's a hanging offense in this territory." Tolliver let out a harsh laugh. "Who's gonna stop us? You? One man against all of us?" "He's not one man," a new voice boomed across the yard. Everyone turned. Riding slowly into the yard were 2 more men. One was tall and wore the unmistakable badge of a U.S. Marshal. The other was a man in a city suit, looking distinctly out of place. "I believe the odds are a little more even now," the Marshal said, his eyes scanning the scene. Tolliver's face went pale. "Marshal Davis, this is a private matter. It doesn't concern you." "A threat of kidnapping, on top of the very interesting allegations in this newspaper," the Marshal replied coolly, holding up his own copy of the Register. "Oh, I think it concerns me a great deal. The territorial governor seems to think so too. He's very eager to have a chat with Mr. Webster." The man in the suit spoke for the first time, his voice crisp and professional. "Jessica Valmont?" he asked, looking at her. She nodded, her heart in her throat. "My name is Arthur Pendleton. I represent the law firm of Harris and Pendleton in Helena. I received your telegraph. We have already filed an emergency injunction against Mr. Harold Webster, preventing any action regarding the Morgan property pending a full investigation into his business practices." Tolliver and his men looked stunned, their blustering confidence draining away. "This ain't over," Tolliver spat. But his threat held no weight. "I believe it is," Marshal Davis said, his hand resting on the butt of his pistol. "Now, I suggest you and your men ride back to the Circle W and tell your boss he has an appointment in Helena. If he's not in the governor's office by the end of the week, I'll come for him myself." Tolliver shot one last, hate-filled glare at Liam and Jessica before yanking his horse around and leading his defeated men away. The marshal dismounted and walked up to the porch. "Liam Morgan, been too long." "Ben," Liam said, lowering his rifle and shaking the marshal's hand, "your timing is as good as ever." The marshal smiled. "I was already on my way out here to talk to you about this article when I saw Tolliver's posse heading this way. Figured it wasn't a social call." He tipped his hat to Jessica. "Miss Valmont, you've caused quite a stir." "I only told the truth, Marshal," she said. "Sometimes that's the most dangerous thing a person can do," he said with a nod. He turned serious. "The governor has been looking for a way to go after Webster for years. His mining operations, his land deals, they've always been shady. But he was too rich, too powerful. Your story, Miss Valmont, it gave us the ammunition we needed. There will be a full investigation." "What about the ranch?" Liam asked. The lawyer, Mr. Pendleton, stepped forward. "The injunction is solid. Webster can't touch your loan. In fact, given the evidence of predatory intent, it's likely his claim on your mortgage will be nullified entirely. Your ranch is safe, Mr. Morgan." Relief, so potent it made her knees weak, washed over Jessica. After the marshal and the lawyer left, promising to be in touch, a profound quiet settled over the ranch. The war was over. They had won. Liam turned to Jessica, his eyes full of a wonder that humbled her. "I still can't believe it," he said softly. "You did all this. You saved my home." "You saved me first," she whispered. "I just leveled the playing field." He stepped closer until they were only inches apart. He gently reached out and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "Is that all this was for you? Leveling the playing field?" Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might burst. She looked up into his piercing blue eyes and shook her head. "No," she breathed. "It was for much more than that." "Jessica," he said, his voice thick with an emotion he no longer tried to hide. "I know this has been fast. I know this is crazy. But when I found you on that road, broken and alone, it was like finding a piece of myself I never knew was missing. I think I've been falling in love with you since that very first morning." Tears welled in her eyes, tears of joy this time. "I came out here looking for a home," she said, her voice choked with feeling. "I thought it would be a house, a town, but I was wrong. It was never a place." He brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "I can't give you fine dresses or fancy parties," he said, his voice a low, earnest whisper. "All I can offer is this land, a lifetime of hard work, and a heart that is completely, irrevocably yours. That," she whispered, her voice breaking, "is all I have ever wanted." And when he lowered his head and his lips finally met hers, it wasn't a kiss of desperation or relief. It was a kiss of homecoming, a promise made under the vast Montana sky. She had been thrown away like trash, left for dead in the wilderness. But in the deepest darkness, she had found the brightest light. A cowboy who had promised to carry her, and in doing so, had carried them both into a future she had never dared to imagine. 6 months later, with the autumn aspens turning the mountains to gold, Jessica Valmont stood on that same porch and married Liam Morgan. Maggie wept with joy, and Marshal Davis stood as Liam's best man. The town of Riverdale, and ranchers from all over the valley whose lives had been upended by Webster, came to celebrate. Harold Webster, stripped of his power and facing a mountain of federal charges, was a distant memory. His empire had crumbled, built as it was on a foundation of lies and cruelty. as Liam swung her around the barn floor in their first dance as husband and wife, surrounded by the warm glow of lanterns and the happy chatter of their friends. Jessica leaned her head against his shoulder. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Morgan?" he murmured into her hair. She smiled up at him. "I was just thinking," she said, "that the stagecoach that threw me away was actually the chariot that brought me home." Liam's blue eyes shone with love. He stopped dancing and kissed her, long and deep, a promise of all the dawns to come. "I'll always be grateful for that road, Jessica," he whispered against her lips. "Always." And she knew, with a certainty that filled her entire being, that her journey was finally over. She had found her place. She had found her home. She had found her love. If you enjoyed this story of justice in the Old West, don't forget to like and subscribe, because there are always more stories hidden in the shadows, just waiting to be told.